Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Happy Friday, you guys. Happy Friday. I see already, I already got some trolls all in a tizzy. That was my intention, you clowns. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you took the bait. Let's see. Yeah, they're like delusion. Let me share some of these comments with you. Delusional much. Let's see. Yeah. Destroyed Bret. You're crazy. She wouldn't answer a question. Not only did she answer questions, but she did so intelligently, articulately, and maybe you couldn't recognize it because you're too used to a half-witted dumb shit who cannot complete a goddamn sentence. That's not how regular adults, intelligent adults, communicate. They begin a sentence and they end a sentence. They don't do some kind of fantastical weave. Anyway, I'm not going to be distracted too much by you clowns. Welcome you guys to another episode of Storytime with BDD. Candace to me, let me just say thank you so kindly for the kind of donation. I'm happy to see you guys here for the second time this week. We used to do this show daily. That was crazy. I can't do another daily show, but even when I pared it back to 3 days, it was a lot. So thank you for being here. Let's see, who do we have here? Let's see. Oh my goodness. Is somebody beat? No, we got Zelda here at the top. Paula Ogilvy, teacher Lori G. Excuse me, Claudia Meredith Powell, Diane London, CJ is here, Valerie G, and then Cindy Kellner. And guys, bear with me. You are going to be sharing space with some absolute tools. Just like ignore them as best you can. If I can block them on YouTube, I absolutely will. But if they're coming in through Twitter, I don't know. You just have to. Hey, Samantha Hawkins is there. What's up, Cindy C? Foxhill Dreams. Yeah, most of the tools are going to show up in Twitter. Stella Baxter is here. Sandra from Paramount, California. God will see us through. Queen of the South, the Trump Reaper. Let's see. TGIF, EdMe35. Palm Reader says Bret needs to lay off the Botox. Agreed. Let's see. Pam Ham is here. Freedom Tweets. Sandra, thank you for that. I appreciate you. Okay, so let me keep it moving. Let's do a quick recap on what I like to call stories of the day. Stories of the day. Now, I just have to admit, I knew when I created when I created this cover, I was like, oh, this is like it's like drawing flies to shit. Yes, absolutely. Kamala beats Bret. And you know what? I wasn't just doing that as clickbait. Although you stupid clowns, you know who you are. Those of you who are like, she did not destroy him. Actually, yes, she did. Sorry to tell you that. Despite trolls' best efforts to combat reality with their own reality, like Donald Trump saying, "I absolutely beat Kamala Harris in that debate." Really? Why then? Why are you hiding from her, Spanky? Why are you hiding from 60 Minutes? Why are you hiding from everybody? We'll get to that. But yeah, first let's cover the first thing we're going to discuss is Kamala expertly planning her attack on Bret Baier. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Planning her attack on Bret Baier. Because absolutely, this was not an interview, it was a debate. And she knew that was coming, just so you know. Meanwhile, Spanky McDumbass is huffing and puffing and can barely keep up. He doesn't have the stamina to keep up with Kamala. He's tired. Apparently, his campaign aides are saying that that Donald Trump is exhausted, and that's why he's that's why he's canceling interviews. I love it. I love it so much. And the Bigliest Loser, we are going to read from a few more pages from this fantastical book. It is fantastic. It is hilarious. And if you don't like it, well, you can sit there and suffer and scream, or you can join in and enjoy the show. And please, before you forget, please hit the subscribe and the like button. The like button looks like my thumbs up there. Please do so. That does help the channel. It does help draw pleasant people as well as the trolls. We hope to draw more pleasant, decent people than trolls, but you know, it is what it is. And oh, yeah. So I happen to be wearing currently a Spanky McDumbass coming to a prison near you soon, a shirt, which can be found on BrooklynDadDefiant.com. And I'll just share that with you right there. Coming to a prison near you. So go to BrooklynDadDefiant.com. Go to the, in fact, I did post a link somewhere on my Twitter thread. I think it's a sub tweet to the video that I just posted with Kamala Harris. Well, I will post it after the show. Let's get back to this here. Zip. All right, so early voting continues, and in places like Georgia and North Kakalaki and many other places, but in Georgia in particular, they broke a record. A record amount of early votings took place this year. The previous record was set in 2020, the election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. The previous one-day record, first day record, was 136,000 votes. This year, over 250,000 Georgians had voted on the first day of early voting, with people still online. I don't know what the final tally was, but it already doubled. And people are like, "Well, Brooklyn Dad, what makes you think that that favors Democrats?" Well, because historically, Democrats tend to vote early more so than Republicans, and even more so because Donald Trump has very brilliantly advised his voters not to vote early. So that makes a whole lot of sense. Also, in North Kakalaki, another record total for the first day of early voting. Let's see. Overall, looks like it was in-person early voting was 353,000, and that's wild. That's pretty incredible for a first day of early voting. So, if you are in one of those areas, if you're in one of the areas that people are voting early, get your vote in. Do it. Do it now. Do it. Don't wait. And let's talk about polls for a second, right? Because there are a lot of MAGA enthusiasts out there who are crowing proudly, "Oh, Donald Trump is winning in the polls." No, he's not. He's winning in the polls as much as the red wave was coming 2 years ago in 2022. You guys remember that? The red wave? The red wave that never happened, wasn't even a puddle, wasn't even a drip. There was no red wave. But that's what happens when the zone gets flooded by Republican polls. And here we have Republicans are flooding the zone with red wave polls. 26 Republican polls were dumped in October to offset the 33 nonpartisan polls. They are trying to suppress Dems' votes and create an argument for election fraud when Trump loses. So basically, what they're trying to do is set the stage to make it look like we were winning. We were winning, and then we went to sleep, and suddenly there were votes. There were more votes that got counted, and I don't know what happened, but yeah, they're trying to do that bullshit again. You know, if Republicans would just propose ideas and policies that didn't piss off more than half of the electorate, you wouldn't have to resort to all this bullshit, this cheating, this bullshittery. Come on, get some ideas out there that people can get behind. We propose to stop price gouging. No, 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 we can't have that because it's capitalism. We don't want to be communists. You want to stop price gouging. You want to stop people from raising prices unfairly for taking advantage of people in dire and desperate situations. Like, for instance, people in North Kakalaki and Tennessee and places that were hit by the aftermath of the hurricane. After the hurricane, what was it? Hurricane Helene. After that hurricane went through, it was downgraded to a tropical depression, but it still wreaked quite a great deal of damage on some areas where there were mudslides and there's people still missing. And in those areas, people were, jacking their prices up, for basic necessities, water and food and gas and lodging. Come on. You mean to tell me that you would vote against stopping people from being assholes? Come on. This is my point here, We want to stop oil and gas companies from jacking up gas prices. You want to complain about higher gas prices, which, by the way, I know you've noticed. I know you have noticed when you drive past, unless of course you're in California. For some reason, gas prices in California are always higher than everywhere else. But in the other 49 states, maybe not Alaska, maybe Alaska's higher too. In the other 48 states, if you're driving past a gas station, you're like, that's all right. Well, it's not $1.99. You're not going to ever see $1.99 gas again unless there's another pandemic. And that is why, folks, you had $1.99 gas, because thousands of people were dying per day. Don't act stupid. Don't act like you don't know. The demand was down. The country was closed. Nobody was going anywhere. So obviously the gas prices went down. It's not because Donald Trump was some kind of magical gas price genius. He wasn't. He didn't do anything special to make us have a good economy. No, President Obama handed him a humming economy. And all he had to do was not be a dipshit and screw it up. But screw it up, he did. Anyway, lost millions of jobs. Millions of businesses had to close because he mismanaged COVID. Anyway, I digress. So these polls, ignore them. Ignore them. Right now, the name of the game is turnout. It's turnout. The game right now is to talk to your relatives, talk to your coworkers, talk to your neighbors, talk to everybody you know, and tell them this is important. I never ask you for anything. I never borrow money from you. I don't borrow your tools or your lawnmower or anything. I'm asking you, go and vote for Kamala Harris. Tell them that. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. What's the worst that can happen? You find out that, well, I don't know. I need to know more about Kamala Harris. Well, okay, I'll tell you in 5 seconds. She hasn't been convicted of 34 felonies. She hasn't been found an adjudicated rapist. She hasn't been impeached for attempting to extort the president of Ukraine. She hasn't been impeached for insurrection, inciting an insurrection. She is she is 30 years younger than the other jackass. She's got great ideas. She can speak in complete sentences, and she doesn't want to be a dictator. Is that enough? Is that enough for you to know? Anyway, I digress. So the other day, Kamala Harris, joyful warrior, Kamala Harris, was I think this was yesterday. It feels like it was a long time ago. But yeah, the other day, Kamala Harris was giving a rally, and she was heckled. She's been heckled before, you know. It's not a big deal. She apparently really knows how to deal with hecklers. And why is this a big deal? It's not a big deal, other than, we've seen how Donald Trump deals with hecklers. He says, "Get them the hell out of here. If you rough them up, I don't care. I'll pay the legal fees." You remember that? Yeah, she doesn't do that. She looks at them and she smiles. She's joyful about it. I'm going to play for you right now. Let's see. I'm going to play for you what happened, what transpired when she was interrupticus by a MAGA heckler. This is how you do it if you have class.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street. So,
mind you, that wasn't all that happened. That's all that I'm showing right now. But what happened immediately after that, that there was one of the rally attendees became ill, and then she directed her aides or whatever to get medical assistance to tend to that attendee. Contrast that with a town hall that happened. Again, feels like it happened a month ago. It just happened within the past 5 days. Donald Trump was at his own, not rally, but a town hall in which apparently a couple of people became ill, probably because that spot that he was having the town hall was overheated, maybe because he didn't pay his bills, so they didn't have any air conditioning for them. But he used that as an excuse to stop the question and answer portion of the town hall, which that's basically what a town hall is, you know. And then he started playing music and swaying. And we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to finish up with this segment here. So let's go ahead and get to the thing that's gotten all these trolls panties in a bunch. Unbunch your panties, you clowns, you maggots. Unbunch them. Kamala Harris agreed to do an interview on Fox News. Now, immediately when I heard of this, I thought, oh, why would she do it? I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of her doing an interview on Fox News. But then I knew she was like, man, I don't care. These people aren't on my level. They can't mess with me. They can't mess with me. I'll go anywhere. And she basically has been on this kind of thing, like, I'll go. I think she was talking about doing the Joe Rogan podcast. Another thing which strenuously disagree with the idea of going on Joe Rogan. Not because I'm afraid that she can handle that mental midget easily. Little person, excuse me. But I don't agree with giving him the time of day. I don't like his platform. I think he's very lowbrow and he deals in conspiracy theories and bullshit like that. Yeah, he is. He's got a massive audience, but I guarantee you the majority of people listening to his podcast, they can't be convinced, and they're going to want him to do the same kind of bullshit that Bret Baier attempted to do to Kamala Harris. So, what did Bret Baier attempt to do? He attempted to stand in for Donald Trump as a surrogate, as kind of like Trump's avatar, his stand in, since Trump was too chicken shit to debate Kamala Harris. Bret Baier was going to do it himself. That's what the fuck happened. That is what he wanted to happen. That's not how it unfolded, Yeah. So Bret Baier had previously interviewed Kamala Harris. Bret Baier had previously interviewed Donald Trump and was much more cordial. The very first question that he hit Trump was like something very soft, like, as president, what do you think is the most important issue for you to discuss, or some bullshit like that. He immediately went in on Kamala, trying to trip her up with some question about the border. And she answered how she wanted to answer. And, if you watch enough political news, all politicians do this. They frame the argument the way they see fit. That's how they do. Now, 9 times out of 10, you almost never see any pushback. I know, because we all complain about that shit. Why did you push back? You didn't even answer the question. She did answer the question. She just didn't answer it how you clowns wanted her to. What did you want her to say? I feel so bad. I failed. I'm a failure. Oh, it's true. I was the border czar. No, she wasn't the border czar. That's what you guys tried to say she was. She never called herself the border czar, nor did Joe Biden ever call her the border czar. That is what the stupid right-wing media pronounced her as. Her task was to go to 3 countries in South America and determine the reason people were migrating to America. That was it. Her job was not to go to the border and close it down or, institute new. She didn't have the power to do that. She's the vice president. The vice president doesn't do those things. The vice president breaks ties in the Senate, and the vice president steps in when the president is unable to fulfill his or her duties. That's it. That's what she has the power to do. So she went and did that stuff, but that's not a border czar. Okay? So, no, she didn't answer the question the way you wanted her to, or the way Bret wanted her to. So Bret continued to interrupticus her, interrupt. And, by this point, if it was Donald Trump being interrupted and being, manhandled, so to speak, Trump would have left. And how do I know this? Because he did that shit when he was interviewed on 60 Minutes by, what's her name? Damn it, it's Leslie. Here, I need help from my audience here. Let's see, what's her name? Leslie something. You guys like to jump in frequently and help me out. Boy, I'm missing all these comments. Leslie Stahl, thank you. Thank you, Stella Baxter, Valerie G. You guys got me. You got my back. Yeah, he stormed out of there. Okay, you got enough? Yeah, we're good. We're out of here. And he left, soiled diaper and all. Oh my goodness. My friend Zelda, thank you so kindly. Hang on a second. Completely missed that. Where did that? Give me a second, you guys. I got to stop for this. There it is. Zelda, Zelda, my friend, thank you so kindly for that incredibly generous donation. That is amazing. Thank you so much. Um, anyway, I'm going to play a little clip for you now where Kamala Harris uh, demonstrates that she is no shrinking violet. She knows how to handle the situation when someone is trying to pull a fast one. And tried to pull a fast one, indeed, is what Bret Baier tried to do in two instances. I'll play the first one right here.
And this is how he responded. Question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump...
The significance of that.
You call Donald Trump...
Yeah. Let's not diminish the significance of that. And I'm so glad she pushed back. That is exactly what needed to happen. And he got caught out there. He got cold caught out there, and she called him out on the spot. This is what you want your president of the United States to be able to do, to look somebody in the face. And she didn't curse him out. She didn't, call him dumb or stupid, things that Donald Trump would do. It's the rudest thing. She didn't complain about that. She just called him out and said, look, this is disingenuous. This is not what, this is not the right clip. And you know what? He absolutely had the ability to pull up that clip in 1 second. In 1 second. You know what? I do this little rinky-dink show here, right? With my clips from Twitter and my pictures on PowerPoint. If I need to pull up a clip, I can do that in a heartbeat. Any clip in a heartbeat. I have that little bit of preparation working by myself. Bret Baier has the full team on Fox News. So he's 100% able to call up the correct clip. Did he call it up when she called him out? Hell no. He had no intention of doing so. And he knew that. And she knew that. And she walked in 100% knowing that. Here's another. I'm going to share with you another. What is it? It's not Twitter. It is Twitter. It absolutely is Twitter. I'm not calling this bullshit X. The fuck out of here with that. I'm going to share another clip with you. This was my favorite one. This was where Bret thought he was catching her out there on one of their culture war little tangents. And she was ready for him. She was absolutely ready, and it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, here we go.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded.
Let me just explain what this is. He said that this was an ad, a political ad from the Trump campaign that's been catching some fire, and he wanted her to discuss it.
This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to
Let me freeze this right now, just so you guys know. That was supposed to be an aha, gotcha moment. It was not.
help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available to, on a medical necessity basis, to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition
Well,
surgeries
you know what? You got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what
his
happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in
So
black and white.
would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment
I will
surgeries?
follow the law, just as I
But you have a
think
say
Donald Trump would
as-
say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think it's he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
On
it was
plans for
different,
the
but let's-
American
we'll move
people,
on.
I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small business.
Let me pause this here, right? Because if in case you didn't hear, he's like, let's move on because she's already now going into her, 3-point stroke, right? She's already, got him on his back heel. He tried to catch her out there and she done flipped the script on him. And now she's using it to talk about shit she wants to talk about. Let's go.
Which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker,
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people say-
inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year.
Why
Those
do
are
you-
the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that.
One of my biggest pet peeves in life is being interrupted. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I don't like it one bit. If you decide you don't want to be friends with me, just do that to me, on a repeated basis. Because I will tell you to your face, don't interrupt me. I will look at you. I don't care who the hell you are. If you're my boss, whatever, don't interrupt me. And if we can't be friends, then just interrupt me. But Kamala Harris is a woman and she's a professional. She's a professional woman. She has been a professional woman for decades. That means she has had to grow accustomed to and figure out workarounds for people, men who will interrupt her, who will think that their ideas, that what they have to say is more important than her finishing her sentence. And as such, having to deal with that kind of reality has forced her to come up with strategies to deal with that, to remember what the hell it is that she was trying to say while this motherfucker is interrupting her. And mind you, that is a debate strategy people use. That is a debate strategy that people use to throw you off your game, to make you forget your point, and to embarrass you. This was not somebody who was in good faith conducting an interview in good faith. This was somebody who was trying to score points for Donald Trump. That's all it was. So with that context in mind, she absolutely did destroy Bret Baier. She did not lose her composure. She answered all the questions that he allowed her to answer. Because mind you, she was in the middle of answering questions and he would cut her off. That bullshit. The only thing that Trumpers, maggots, bots or whatever were successful in doing, and I can't even say that they were successful, but what they have been attempting to do is spin this as, oh, she's a train wreck. She was this. No. She was as much of a train wreck. She wasn't a train wreck at all. She destroyed your boy Trump in that debate so badly, he didn't want no more. Says, oh, she's stupid. She's dumb. Oh, really? She's dumb, stupid? Take her on again. What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid? I've never heard of any such thing. She's stupid, but you don't want to debate her again because it's too late. What does that mean, it's too late? There was a month left. There's 18 days left or whatever. 18 days, jeez. But yeah, she's out there hustling. She's going to, she interviewed in the belly of the beast at Fox News. That's the equivalent, mind you, of being interviewed on MSNBC by Rachel Maddow. I don't see Trump trying to, knocking on the door of MSNBC to be interviewed by Rachel Maddow. Lawrence O'Donnell would shred him to bits. Lawrence O'Donnell, oh boy. Joy Reid, forget it. He wouldn't last. He would not last 1 minute with Joy Reid. I'll tell you that. She would decimate him. Donald Trump is a bully. And history would tell you that when you punch a bully in the mouth, see, bullies, they get by on just, shoving their way around, and acting like they're bigger and badder than everybody else. But all it takes is one person, maybe even half that bully's size, to walk right up to him, look him in the eye, and pop him in the nose, kick him in the nuts, and let him know what? Kamala Harris was not afraid of Donald Trump, and she looked him in the eye. She walked across that debate stage and shook his hand. Let's have a good debate. He couldn't even look her in the eye in that debate. Yeah. So she absolutely won that battle between herself and Bret Baier. No, I'm not sorry to burst your bubble, maggots. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is a walking disaster. He is a complete disaster. Anytime he does a public appearance, he embarrasses himself. Maybe not to, the MAGA crowd. He can do whatever. He could sit on a stage, pull his pants down, poop into his hands, smear it all over his face, and they would think it's the most brilliant thing he's ever done. But to those of us with a working brain, when we see him get asked a question by an adult about something like, what do you think about Google breakup, for instance? And he goes off on a tangent. Here. He was at the Economic Club of Chicago. This was, if I was a Trump supporter, I guess I would have to lower my IQ by about 75. But if I was a Trump supporter, I would be thoroughly embarrassed by how he comported himself at this thing here. Guys, the idea behind going on an interview is not to be rude. It's to answer questions. It's to let the audience Know who you are. Know what you're thinking. Here, let's go. Where was it? Economic.
This question
No. Shush, shush, shush. Oh,
two particular.
oh, here we go.
Up its voter rolls.
Should Google be broken up?
I just haven't gotten over something the Justice Department did yesterday, where Virginia cleaned up its voter rolls and got rid of thousands and thousands of bad votes, and the Justice Department sued them that they should be allowed to put those bad votes and illegal votes back in and let the people vote. So I haven't gotten over that. A lot of people have seen that. They can't even believe it.
The question is about Google, President Trump. Now, should Google be broken up?
The question was about whether or not Google should be broken up. And he goes off on a tangent about some conspiracy theory that he's trying to push about votes in Virginia. Come on now. Come on. Hey, Geocosmic Valentine, I see you there. Watcher Soko, Nurse Mitch, Ness from Connecticut, Stella Baxter. I see you guys there. Thank you so much. La, 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 la. Who is Cindy Kellner? Bernadette Ramos. I just want to take a moment here to say hi to my my faithful supporters here. Misha Oliver, haven't seen you in a minute. Liberty. Punxsutawney Mo, there he is. What's up, buddy? Okay. So anyway, Dexter Wright. I think I see Dexter right there. Laws are for suckers and losers. Okay. And yes, there was a disrespectful POS. Where was I? So yeah, that was completely embarrassing. He's unable to answer a straight up question. I mean, he just didn't know about it. And this, oh my God, I had never seen anything as bizarre as this. By now, you guys have already seen it. It was just surreal. Surreal. The other day, Nicole Wallace actually played, she devoted like a little section of her screen, and she had a timer on to show how long 40 minutes is. And all this clown did, right? Yeah, he had a couple of people who gotten sick. But if you were watching the debate, the rally with Kamala Harris the other day, she had a sick attendee. It took her 30 seconds to make sure that that person was being handled, was being taken care of, and then she continued her speech. That's all. But this guy, he said, "You know what? We don't need to hear any more questions, right? No, let's listen to some music." And for 40 minutes, he stood up there and sweat. I could understand if he was at least a good dancer. He's not even a good dancer. He does this thing where he just like, sways his body, back and forth, and he does this stupid. Who told him that this or the jerking two dudes thing was a good dance move? Whoever told him that must hate his guts, because he keeps doing it, and it doesn't look it doesn't look good at all. So yeah, I'll show you. I'm sure you've already seen it, but um, it doesn't hurt to show it again because it's humiliating. At least it should be humiliating. Absolutely insane. I'm just going to turn the music off because if I keep it on, I will get hit with some kind of copyright infringement. But just imagine that music is playing, and there he is with Christy Nome. Like, how bad does your campaign have to be that you're on a stage with the puppy killer, Christy Nome? That's insane. Absolutely bonkers, batshit bonkers. And he was up there just swaying to music for 40 straight 39 minutes. That's insane. This is where his campaign has fallen to. And then the pièce de la résistance is this one is this thing where it was the Univision town hall. He cannot be allowed to speak in front of in the public anymore. He can't, because every time he speaks in public, he loses voters. And that is exactly what happened at this Univision thing. And this is like one of my favorite things, because this voter told him, he's like, look, I'm a Republican. I'm not a registered Republican anymore, but I'm a Republican and I voted for you before, and I want you to tell me something to win my vote back. He was giving him the chance to win his vote back. And what did he do? He was just himself. And unfortunately for Donald Trump, being himself is a bad thing.
I am a Republican, no longer registered though. I want to give you the opportunity to try to win back my vote. Okay. Your, let me say, action and maybe inaction during your presidency and the last few years, sort of, was a little disturbing to me. What happened during January 6th, and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. That's, your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
Thank you, amigo.
That's called an off-ramp. Trump was essentially handed an opportunity to distance himself from the whole fascism thing, and in turn appeal to the sort of voters who enjoy the US Constitution. But instead, he did this.
The vice president, I disagree with him on what he did. I totally disagreed with him on what he did. Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said, peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns there.
That's one of my favorite parts of the video, when he says Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. And that woman on the left of the screen, she's like, wait, what? Let me just play that again, because every American should have been like, what?
Election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said, peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall.
Another point I just want to make. He said the others had guns. We didn't have guns. So he said we. He's putting himself in there with the January 6th attackers. The other ones that had guns were the police. He's putting himself with the January 6th attackers against the others who were the cops, who were getting beaten with fire extinguishers, beaten with flagpoles.
Which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love.
A day of love. Also, did you notice how Trump referred to the January 6th rioters as we and the police as the others? The party of law and order, ladies and gentlemen. Luckily for us, the man who asked that question, Ramiro Gonzalez, spoke to Univision's local New York station after the town hall. Here is what he thought of Trump's response.
¿Recibió la respuesta que estaba buscando?
No. Yo vi lo que pasó. Yo estaba mirando el televisor y había visto muchos news clips y de lo que pasó ese día.
Usted llegó indeciso a esta actividad. ¿Tiene una decisión hecha para hoy?
Yo no voy a votar por él.
From undecided former registered Republican to I'm not going to vote for him in one answer.
Wild. That's wild. And I love that clip. I think that sort of thing should happen more often. Unfortunately, I think, if I was on Trump's team, I would absolutely insist he do no more public appearances, period. Even when he's on Fox and Friends, Fox and Friends is probably the safest space he can possibly be in. He can't control himself. He's bought, he has sold himself so much bullshit. He can't separate the reality from the lies he's been spinning and telling everybody else. So, he is a walking disaster. So now his team, his campaign team, they have no choice but to spin this yarn, saying that he's exhausted. And excuse me, this is why he's canceling interviews, whether it's 60 Minutes or an appearance on CNBC. You can't do it. And Kamala, meanwhile, is going anywhere and everywhere. This week, she went to Fox News. She did Charlemagne the God. Last week, she did, 5 different interviews. And this is that same Kamala Harris who people on the right, they were buying their own. I don't know where they got the idea that a career prosecutor, someone who has had practice in preparation, in preparing herself to speak publicly, intelligently, in front of her own peers, in front of judges, in front of large crowds. Somehow, these knuckleheads got it in their brains, in their smooth brains, that she can't finish a sentence. So they're buying Trump's garbage, his projection thing. Everything he projects, is about himself. He's trying to say that she is deranged. She is delusional. Absolutely crazy. So where do things stand right now? It's anybody's guess. They keep saying it's a tight race. I don't believe that it's as tight as the news media is making it out to be. I think they want us to stay afraid. I think they want us to stay locked in. I think they're also trying to hedge their bets because they got it so spectacularly wrong in 2016. I mean, it was like horrendously wrong. So they don't want to, go too much one way or the other. So right now, everybody believes that the polls are even. We'll see what happens on November 5th. But all I see him bleeding votes away. I just saw in the past 60 minutes, about a half hour before the show started, I saw that Nikki Haley has extended an olive branch to him. Why, I'll never know. But she said, yeah, I'd be happy to go on and campaign for him. He was asked about this, and not only did he not, was he not nice, and he was, Nikki Haley, we never cared about Nikki Haley. He was just very dismissive of her. Like, wow, dude, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like it when he says dumb, stupid things that hurt himself. But a part of your brain, like if you're watching a TV show and you see somebody make an obvious error, you're like, dude, what, dude? Yeah. So, Keith, excuse me. Punxsutawney Mo says Keith Olbermann is saying that the voting could come to an electoral college victory for Harris and a popular vote for Diaper Donald. Would that be ironic? That would be hilarious. I don't see that happening. In fact, in my book, The Bigliest Loser, I do predict an overwhelming popular vote victory for Kamala Harris. I don't know how many electoral votes she will win. I do think it's tough. I think a lot of things have to break her way, but I also think that she has more paths to victory than Trump does. And again, he's not trying to expand his tent. What he's trying to do is increase his margins with white, uneducated white males. That's what he's trying to the non-college white men. Even that group, I think, at some point they've got to look at this guy and realize that wow, he actually is bad. Train wreck. Janine says the felon does not have nearly as many votes as the polls are saying. Just look at the tens of thousands of actual Republicans who left him. This is an excellent comment. And I would also like to add that there are a significant number of staffers, Republican, former staffers of presidents from George W. Bush, Trump, people who were Trump staffers, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, people who worked for all of these past Republican presidents, hundreds of them have come out in support of Kamala Harris. I thought it was crazy when I saw that Dick Cheney, and people are like, oh, you could have him. He's a warmonger. That's not the point. We don't, just because Dick Cheney is endorsing Kamala Harris doesn't mean that he loves Democrats, and definitely doesn't mean that Democrats love Dick Cheney. We know who the fuck he is. But it's saying Donald Trump is so horrendous that this guy, who we've known to not have a shred of decency, actually turns out does have a shred of decency, and says that Donald Trump cannot be president. This guy, who is a conservative Republican through and through, as ruthless as they come, even he cannot abide seeing Donald Trump in the White House again. That's how serious it is. And I think that makes a difference. Of course, Liz Cheney, George Will, it's another, that's a Republican that your parents and your grandparents will say, oh yeah, George Will, wow, he said that, huh? Names like that, they make a difference to the older crowd. The 50 and 60 plus people, when they hear that, they're like, whoa, hey. Makes them stand up and take note. Nurse Mitch pointing out AOC and Cheney on the same side. That's insane. We will hopefully never see that again. What would Ronald Reagan, CJ says, what would Ronald Reagan think of today's Republican Party? I think he would be disgusted. He would be absolutely disgusted. I think Ronald Reagan, and I was no fan of Ronald Reagan either. Just let's set the record straight. Not a fan of Ronald Reagan. I think Ronald Reagan would be disgusted with his own party. He would probably register as independent. And it's tough to say what he would do because towards the end he was he had dementia, I think so. But yeah, even at one point Ronald Reagan was pro-gun reform. I think that was after somebody tried to assassinate him. You would think if Donald Trump was legitimately, someone legitimately tried to take his life, that would change his perspective on gun control. But what do I know? Anyway, let's move this show forward with what I'm looking forward to is reading some more of The Bigliest Loser, which is my latest book. It's available in paperback and in hardcover. on Amazon and on BrooklynDadDefiant.com. It is the sequel to my first book, The Littlest President. And I gotta say, I do every once in a while look up from what I'm doing here to the comments, and boy, you trolls are really lazy. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Um, Trolls back in the days were more creative. They had a little bit more something to say. You guys got nothing. Nothing. Should be ashamed. Anyway, where we left off last week, I was reading this page about Spanky. What was it? Spanky was afraid he was going to lose. He told everyone, "If I lose, it's rigged." He begged his supporters not to use mail-in ballots. This meant Spanky would get far fewer mail-in ballots. Spanky was a moron. Okay, so let's move it forward. Here's the more current one. Here's the current page. He called his opponent Sleepy Mo. His opponent was riding bikes, going out to meet protesters. His gatherings were small and safe. Spanky was having super spreaders, which caused more of his supporters to die. But he didn't care one bit. Spanky was a sociopath. He is a sociopath. So as you can see here, it's a split screen. On the left there, you see Joe Biden, and I remember seeing those rallies with the circles. Those were the social distance circles where people were recommended to keep 6 feet apart. And while I thought it was responsible, the optics of it, yeah, maybe they didn't favor that mentality that believes that the only rally that matters is the rally that has thousands and thousands of people. But that makes sense when you don't have a raging pandemic and thousands of people dying per day. It's just not responsible. It's not responsible to do that. So Spanky infamously had these jam-packed rallies where the COVID molecules were all over the place, landing on people, and people were dying. Herman Cain says hello. Next page. A reporter recorded Spanky earlier in the year. Spanky told him the disease was really bad and that everyone, even children, could catch it, even though he told everyone else it was no big deal. The reporter shared the tapes of Spanky's confessions, and people heard what they knew all along. Spanky was a deadly liar. So the picture here shows Spanky standing on his desk, excuse me, saying it's no big deal on one side of his face, but on the other side of his face, he's telling Bob Woodward, I always wanted to play it down. And on the other side of his face, he's saying it's deadly to kids too. And we know this because because Bob Woodward was recording his interview sessions with Donald Trump, in which he revealed that he knew exactly how deadly the pandemic was. He knew. And then he played it down. And what's wrong with that, guys? What's wrong with that is that people listened to him. When he talked about that disinfectant might be effective in dealing with COVID, the emergency rooms were overflowing with people who attempted to ingest bleach to kill COVID. They had to issue statements saying, "Do not do this." And there on the desk there's a bottle of bleach as well as a box of horse dewormer. You guys will remember that. There's lots of little details in on each page that you guys will find. Whoops. And that's the original sketch of this page. Naturally, my illustrator, John Kelly, did a much better job rendering this page here. When it came time for the debates, Mo beat Spanky so badly, Spanky caught COVID. So actually, in reality, what ended up happening was when Donald Trump went to that debate, he had COVID, and he actually knew that he had COVID. He didn't bother to tell Joe Biden. I think a lot of us thought he was trying to kill Joe Biden by going in there with COVID and not telling him. Maybe it was from all of the super spreader rallies. Maybe it was because he didn't wear a mask. They took him to the hospital in a helicopter. Spanky was really sick. And the picture here, you can see all those little green things around him. Those are COVID molecules. One is throwing up on him, another one is licking the back of his head. Some are bouncing off of him. And that little speech bubble says, "Are you going to answer the question? Why don't you answer the question? You don't want to answer the question, then stand back and stand by." And on the other side of the page, there's Joe pointing him saying, "Would you shut up, man?" Spanky spent time in the hospital. He got the best treatment money could buy. Unfortunately, most Americans couldn't afford this treatment. Hundreds of thousands of Americans had died because Spanky had lied. And he still wouldn't tell Americans to mask up. Spanky was a pathetic leader. And the picture here, you see him laying in a bed with a fancy IV attached to his arms, and he's holding something. Um, you can see the thing he's holding, it says UV. It's a UV light that he's shining in his face. And up on the wall there, it says breaking news: COVID deaths top 300K in U.S. And it shows some workers carrying a casket. The next page is a spread. When election time, when election night finally came, the results came in slowly. Spanky won some states. Mo Ryden won some states. But there were so many mail-in ballots because of COVID-19, there was no way to tell who had won early on. But a strange thing happened. Mo Ryden started winning states he wasn't supposed to. He won Georgia, and he won Arizona. He even won a tiny district in Nebraska. And when the counting finished, the result was beyond doubt. Mo Ryden had 81 million votes and 306 electoral votes. Spanky was the bigliest loser. By the way, that's also the name of the book. Of course, you knew that. In The Littlest President, the book that preceded this, my guess was that Joe was going to win 79 million popular votes. So I was 2 million votes short there. So I was close. The most important thing is that Joe Biden did win and Spanky lost. And that's a fact that Spanky still cannot accept to this day, to this very day. Not only can he not accept it, J.D. Vance, his running mate, just said the other day when he was asked straight up, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? He said no. That right there, that's disqualifying. You're not even accepting reality. So that's become like a litmus test for Republicans. Like, you can admit that he was convicted of 34 felonies. You can admit that he was impeached twice. You can admit that he has 88 indictments against him. You can admit that he's been found, liable of sexual assault. You can admit all these things about him. Which you can admit that he loves dictators. What you cannot admit is that he lost the election. Did Donald Trump win the election? The answer will be the ones that want to avoid, controversy. They'll say Joe Biden is the president. But did Donald Trump lose the election? They can't come out and say that he lost the election. That's just insane to me. It's insane. I'm a Yankee fan, right? The Yankees lost last night. They're in the ALCS, American League Championship Series. I was devastated because we were up 5-3 going into the bottom of the ninth inning, right? If I was Donald Trump, I'd say, stop counting the runs. When it was 5-3, top of the ninth, my wife and I had to entertain some friends that were in town, and so I turned off the TV. I was like, "We got this." Knocked on wood. We got this. It didn't work. Knocking on wood did not work. Yankees lost. Did I say no? The Yankees did not lose. No, they fucking lost. What's so hard about admitting that you lost when you lost? What am I going to say? The umpires got it wrong, and the everybody who come on. You do a disservice to all of the election workers in America. You do a disservice to all of the. You say you want to count all the legitimate votes. There's 81 million people who voted for Joe Biden. You're disrespecting them. You're disrespecting the people who voted for you by calling into question the legitimacy of our election, of our election system. Meredith Powell says, we all lose sometimes. Admit it, learn from it, and do better next time. This is something basic that we tell our children. Be a good sport. Go and shake his hand. He couldn't even do that. I was stunned how shitty he was. He left. He didn't do any proper turnover with Joe. I remember, as much as Obama can't say he hated Donald Trump, but I'll say as much as he despised Donald Trump, he was doing the right thing. He invited him in. He did a turnover, proper turnover with him. He didn't want Donald Trump to win, but he did what he was supposed to do. Gave him access and showed him the ropes, showed him everything that he needed to show him. Left him a pandemic playbook that then Donald Trump decided to just discard and ignore. Yeah, so that's it. So what do I have to say moving forward is that don't let the polls get you down. Don't even focus on them. You can ignore them for right now because the polls, the zone has been flooded, as I said earlier in the show, by bogus Republican polls. So just assume that it's tied and you cannot skip out on this vote. I don't care what state you live in. If you live in a blue state, get your ass out there and vote. If you live in a red state, even more so, get your ass out there and vote. Because people who live in red states like Alabama or whatever, we have Democrats who live in Alabama and Mississippi and other solid red states. Get your ass out there and vote, because there are other things that matter too. There are state races, there are local races. We cannot ignore these races. The Republicans are kind of beating us when it comes to those local and state races. We have to, first of all, we have to get Hakeem Jeffries in there as Speaker of the House. That is essential, because we saw already the past 2 years, Republicans were not able to get anything done. Nothing. And this isn't even coming from me. I've played a bunch of videos in the past where you have Chip Roy and any number of Republicans complaining about themselves, complaining that they have nothing to show their constituents. They have nothing to show for having a majority. We, on the other hand, Democrats, we deliver. Democrats deliver. We passed bills that are so good that Republicans who voted against them try to take credit for them on the sly, like nobody's going to call them out on it. Here we go. Dexter Wright says this election will be determined by turnout, period. Period. Ness from Connecticut says, already scheduled the day off from work so I can drive my parents and family members to the polls. That is beautiful. I love it so much. I love it. Love it. Scott says, need to fire MAGA Mikey Johnson. We know who that is. Thank you. Absolutely. Monique Lee wants to know, what did Chrissy Teigen call him? The reason he can't admit he lost. Oh, because he's I think she called him a pussy ass bitch. Is that what it was? I think that's what it was. Meredith Powell says, get out and vote. Still time to register. Get young people excited and get them registered. That's another thing, too, that a lot of people are not, and polls are not taking into consideration that the young folks are a lot more engaged than in previous years. And they're ready to get out there and vote. And a lot of them want to vote for Kamala Harris because she does represent the future. And they know they're not buying into, the young kids are not buying into a lot of the what we see from the traditional media, the gaslighting. Here's one thing I noticed that even like MSNBC does during the day. Shitty. MSNBC during the day is shit, is garbage. They will play comments from, a Trump supporter that are absolutely bogus bullshit. Oh, I can't vote for Kamala Harris because she supports, and then she supports something that she clearly doesn't support. But she's a communist, and Donald Trump is, he's genius when it comes to the economy and stuff. And then after they finish playing those comments, they don't clarify that those comments are bullshit. They're just like, oh, what do you know? Look at that. This is what the people on the street are saying. And they can pick any comments. Really. They can pick any comment from any person on the street to play. They choose to select the comments of the dumbest people. Because I'm sure you could go into any neighborhood and find 5 people who have one opinion and 5 people who have another opinion, and they choose to play the opinion of like the lowest common denominator. It's disgraceful. Anyway, I'm going to join Zelda in saying happy fun Friday evening, you guys. I did not do any review of shows, TV shows or movies that I plan to watch because I have frankly no idea. I am going to be spending a great deal of time this weekend signing autographs, autographing my book, the Bigliest Loser, which, as I said, is available on Amazon.com as well as on BrooklynDadDefiant.com. But I want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. So this Tuesday night, there's something fun happening. It's called Heroes for Democracy. And it is going to be myself, JoJo from Jers, and Tristan Snell. The 3 of us are going to be joined by some very well-known celebrities, some politicians that you know. Um, I can't confirm who because that's still in flux, but there's going to be, pay attention to my thread, excuse me, my what do you call it? My feed, and you'll see an announcement coming out in the coming days, either on my feed, JoJo's feed, Tristan's feed, and it's starting at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, Tuesday. It's going from 8 to 10, and it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And aside from that, I think I'm going to be on Stephanie Miller's show Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I think I'm going to be on the Occupy Democrats live stream somewhere between 3 and 5 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. And oh, this is exciting. Next Friday, sometime around noon, I will be on the Midas Touch network doing an interview then. So next week is going to be a little bit busy. I'm excited about that. Yeah. So, you guys, thank you so much again for your strong support. Remind your family and friends that this book is available. It's fantastical. So you want to get it now so that when the election happens, you could be like, "Look, BDD was right. He was right. He's like Nostradamus." They make a wonderful Christmas gift, Thanksgiving gift. You want to get it before Thanksgiving so you can hand it to your least favorite in-law. Your annoying uncle or cousin or whatever, give it to them and shut them up. So, guys, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you here next week, same time, same place. I love you all. Peace.